We'll check it out.
You would like it. I mean, what I like about it is
Yeah.
he talks about how that if you do discipling, you don't have to worry about whether you're talking about church or mission.
Right.
It's,
Right.
you know, he said for several years now, missional has been a buzzword in and around the church. People want to create missional churches, missional programs. He said the thing is, we don't have a missional problem in the Western church. We have a discipleship problem. If you know how to disciple people well, you'll always get mission. Always. Somewhere along the way, we started separating being missional from being a disciple, as if somehow the two could be separated. Pastors started saying they didn't want to be inwardly focused, so they stopped investing in people in their churches so they could focus on people outside their churches. He said, granted, we should focus on people who don't know Jesus yet, but Jesus himself gave us the model for doing that. Disciple people. If you know how to actually make disciples, you'll reach people who don't know Jesus, because that's simply what disciples do. It said that was Jesus's whole plan. If you disciple people as these people do mission in their everyday comings and goings with the work and shaping of the Spirit, the future of the church will emerge. Bro, I'm telling you, this book is beast mode.
Maybe we should give away a copy of that book.
That would be awesome. No, for real, that would be it's one of, here's the thing that I love. The thing that I love about it is this idea. I love this idea of not even considering inward or outward focus.
Right.
Discipling people doesn't have anything to do with inward or outward. It's not like, it's almost like he's saying that's a false paradigm of institutionalism to even think that way.
Right.
Making disciples is just disciplable people who you are making disciples, who will make disciples. It doesn't matter if you're finding them in the church or out of the church, saved people or unsaved people. It's really cool. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you think about making disciples is the way we do mission. And he's like, no, it's just the mission. It's not even a way we do. It's not a way we do. It's not even a method. Making disciples isn't a methodology.
Right. So good, man. And for people that are jumping on, we haven't started yet. This is just the prelude. This is just the prelude to what. Actually, I'm talking about this today, but this is good stuff, man. I think we should maybe give away a copy of that book. We'll figure something out maybe during the show.
Let's figure it out somehow. I wonder what we could.
Let's do it. We could do something. Maybe somebody could throw an idea, book giveaway idea in the chat.
Who gets a book and why?
As we're populating all the things. So I was having a hard time. I was listening to you, but I was trying to, again, it wasn't popping up on my feed, bro. Stinking shadow banned junk, garbage piece of junk.
Jared Staten. That book was Building a Discipling Culture, 3rd edition by Mike Breen.
Yeah, and just we had to get some clarification, because I told my brother that when he says Mike Breen, my brain goes to Mike Breen, the ESPN announcer that does all the NBA games. His famous line is, Steph Curry goes to shoot a 3, bang! That's his big line. So that's what I was thinking. This is awesome, man. Mike Breen wrote a discipling book. Who knew?
Yeah, bang! Jesus reached another one. Bang!
I love it. All right.
You know what's so weird? I got this. Did you get this in the mail by Dave Ferguson? Did you get this? It came to the church, so your church staff might have hid it from you.
I haven't seen it. Not that I'm aware of.
You know what's weird is do you notice the title?
Yeah.
It's not bells.
I know. I've seen that before when he's done that.
And it's right.
Yeah.
5 everyday ways to love your neighbor and change your world. Bless. I wonder where you got that idea.
Okay. Right?
We love you, Dave. We know
Right.
Dave listens to the podcast. We love you, man.
He listens all the time, I'm sure. How could he not? All right.
I've sent him a couple of our best podcast links.
Have you?
Mhm.
Any response?
Yeah, absolutely. He's like, he said, man, you guys have some amazing content. He said, here's what he said. He said, you have some amazing content and you have fun doing it. He said,
Yes, we do.
he said, it's fun. He said, it's fun listening to people who have fun talking about stuff that, could otherwise sound like a bunch of theologians talking,
That's awesome, man. I was thinking about that today. I was thinking about that today. We
Yeah.
have a lot of fun doing this podcast.
We do. Our viewership is like we have 3 people a month listen to the podcast, but doggone it, we have fun.
That's my line that I always tell people. I'm like, I don't know if anybody's listening, but man, we have a blast. That's all I know.
And we have what an amazing way to go back and have an archive of, just information and stuff, that's like
Right.
we go back and have an archive of conversations,
Exactly. All right. I'm going to try to share it to these groups real quick. I'm hurrying. I'm trying,
right.
bro. I'm trying to get it done.
We got Jay Jones. We got Anthony Richard, Gary Gothard, Jared Staten, Ken Bistarkey. Ken Bistarkey sounds like a meteorologist, and doesn't it? The name.
Like it.
It does. He's a meteorologist. And hey guys, today we talked about a giveaway. So we need your creativity.
We need creativity.
We're going to give away the 3rd edition book by Mike Breen. The title, Building a Discipling Culture. We're going to give that book away today, but we need to know to whom and why. Who are we giving the book to and why are we giving it to them? That would be, we could put, numbers into a hat and draw numbers, but then how do we figure out,
It needs to be a little more strategic than just putting numbers in a hat. I feel like.
Right.
I just feel like.
Right. This isn't gambling for Jesus, gambling for
cast lots.
Yeah.
Cast lots. Who's going to be the next disciple?
Jay Jones says it'll just, I'll just make it easy for you.
Yeah.
Just send it to me. Send it to me because I want it. That's why. Oh, see, there it is.
There it is. I'm sending it just to all of these groups. I'm just sending it to everybody. Just everybody. But once again, you have to go through each one by one. I don't think the Far Side wants to see this. I don't know why I'm in the Far Side group, but that's amazing. Apostolic Impact, IBC College and Friends. They need to see this.
Gary Gothard said, I have it. So count me out.
Well, look at that. Getting
That's so kind.
That's so kind, brother.
I know. Isn't that awesome? Or he could say, send it to me and I'll give it to somebody that I've been having a conversation with.
Ooh, there you go. All right. First comment after the magic word.
The magic word will be.
So this is kind of funny, but so we haven't done it for a while here, but with our Timothy guys, every once in a while we would have a phrase that pays.
Oh,
and I'd have to find a way to work the phrase that pays into my sermon.
Mm-hmm.
So only a handful of people knew what was going on, but
yeah,
I'd work it in there. So
yeah. So like a phrase like, I don't know who you think you are, but I'll tell you this much. Like they'll say, like, something like that. Say, yeah. and then anything after that, but you have to say, I don't know who you think you are.
Right. I was trying to think of some of them. So like I've seen them do this with like athletes, like Dan Patrick will tell athletes that you have to say a phrase in your press conference. They're hilarious. They're absolutely hysterical. So that's kind of where I got
they actually did that to me few years ago, actually pre-COVID, whatever. And so the phrase, so what I did was I turned it on its head and preached the entire sermon around the phrase. So like I don't know who you think you are. Like, I don't know who you think you are. So I'm going along. I said, devil, I don't know who you think you are, but my sins are covered in the blood. I don't know who you think you are bringing up my past. They were going nuts. I said,
awesome.
I told him, and I even told him in the middle of it, I said, the cash register is going up because I'm getting paid for each use.
For real, man.
You guys owe me pizza afterwards.
Absolutely.
Hey, maybe it could be what kind of hernia surgery I had this past Tuesday. Get a book.
Are we gonna have a surgery discussion? Is that what we're gonna do?
No, I don't even want to talk about it.
I love it. Gary got their TDG version of Impractical Jokers,
bro.
Right? For real. Listen, I encourage everybody to at least try it. It takes a special level of focus and concentration. For those of us that battle ADD or at least self-diagnosed of ADD, it's a unique challenge.
Yeah. Which is probably why I just went ahead and turned it into the whole sermon.
For real. All right, I think we're good. You ready?
I like it.
Hey, and those that are watching, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, is the video quality better? Let us know, because we've made a few tweaks to the video quality. And I know we had a week off, and every time we take a week off, it's just like trying to get people back in the flow. You know what I'm saying?
That is so true. They're baiting me to talk about the surgery. I'm not doing it, buddy.
We're gonna bring it up. So, phrase that pays. Can we bring up bilateral inguina in the podcast? Oh man! All right, we ready to go?
Let's go.
Let's do it. Here we go. All right, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mobilized Church Podcast. This is Chris Dillingham alongside my big brother, Ken Dillingham Jr. III, or as it says on our screen, Cree Dillahan and KG Dilly Jr. III.
Bro, I've got to tell you something funny with this.
Tell me.
I don't know if you know this or not, but I had surgery last week.
We made it 30 seconds. That's awesome. Not even 30 seconds. That's amazing.
For those of you that wonder, like, why is that so funny? We decided we weren't going to talk about the surgery. However, it's actually not about the surgery. It's about the fact that I wrote my name when they came in to have me fill out my paperwork.
No. Are you serious?
I wrote Junior the Third. I wrote it, bro.
Oh, that is so awesome. That is
I wrote it at the they came out to get me for what do they call it? The pre when they check in
not pre-op and stuff, whatever, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah, anyway. And so they came back and had me fill out a deal, whatever, that date of birth and whatever. And I literally wrote, and Kenneth G. Dillingham Jr. and I wrote TH, and I'm like, what are you writing? Yeah, pre-admission. That's what. Yeah, pre-admission.
So funny, dude. That is amazing. I need a screenshot of that. Do you take a picture?
Would that be awesome? Yeah, I know.
That's amazing. That's so awesome. I almost lost it. It's gonna be an interesting day. So we were out last week, and there's surgery involved. Obviously, we just let that cat out of the bag. I wasn't gonna bring it up, but you let that cat out of the bag right away.
No.
But as I was getting ready to do the intro, I look up and we'd asked about the video because we made a couple tweaks on the video feed. Mm-hmm. And I read Jared Staten's comment that says, looking good other than the two jokers on the screen. And bro, I almost couldn't finish my intro. I almost had to do a restart. So I appreciate that. Thank you for bringing that. We do appreciate everybody being on today.
Yeah. How's the video look?
Other than us. Oh, man. So we're glad to be back, man. I'm glad you're doing okay, bro. You're
Yeah,
playing through pain. Nothing
I
can
know.
keep a good man down. You know what
I
I'm
know.
saying?
I know. The only thing is, so I've gotten through the pain of the surgery, the the all the whatever that laparoscopic. There were three hernias that they repaired, so they're all over the place, fixing it, and
Yeah.
so there's recovery from that. However, as today, it's kind of like the muscles are starting to be like they're like, okay, now everything's situating there. So I've got some cramping going on. So if I stand up or if I check out, like if I do one of the like brother situations or whatever, I'll be like, I'll be back in 30. Just keep talking.
Just keep on rambling. Keep on rambling.
Exactly.
I I did have a moment. You did that like when we had our video trouble or our connection trouble here a while back, and literally it was probably a minute and a half. But if you
Yeah.
go back and listen to it, it literally makes no sense. It was a complete word salad. It was like Kamala Harris. Can I say that? It was like a Kamala
Bro,
Harris
that is so
press
awesome.
conference. Oh my goodness, it was amazing. Well, we're glad you're back, man. Glad you're healthy. I will say this, selfishly, surgery is good for the Dillingham Group and the Mobilized Church Network
Yeah,
because you've been pumping out ridiculous content, bro. Like it just forces you to kind of stop and then
I know. I've
so
got some,
it's
I've got some more stuff that I've been working on that connects to just just some of the little pieces of just trying to create sort of like visual Velcro,
yeah,
like little
yeah,
pieces of things that we do in the map to multiplication that help people, kind of and I think if we introduce some of these things, some of this visual Velcro stuff, it'll cause people to just sort of be like, oh, that's where I'm at in the process or whatever.
yeah,
So
yeah.
anyway,
Which and if anybody knows you, like I always say this, you're a content producing machine. The brain is a wild thing. So
mhm.
when you're not able to go, my text messages start blowing up. I'm like, oh boy, he is pumping out some stuff and got some good stuff. We're gonna get to one of those things
Let's do it
today. One of those things
today.
today. Hey, before
Mhm.
we do that, real
Yeah.
quick,
What?
we mentioned if you were on the pre-show, you kind of got a little bonus content.
Very true.
You were sharing some really good information, and that information came from a book that we want to give away today. We haven't really figured out how we're going to do this yet, but we won't. So the book you were referencing was "Building a Discipling Culture" by Mike Breen,
Very good book.
not the ESPN announcer,
Right.
the pastor and church leader Mike Breen, and so really good book, got a lot of great content. We want to give a copy of that away today, and we need to figure out how we're going to do that. I don't
How are
know.
we going to
We
do
got
that?
some. I don't know. We'll think about it. We'll think about it. So drop some info in the chat of why maybe you think you should get the book "Building a Discipling Culture." And for those who wonder, we've done this before, and Ken, we actually do send out a book. Isn't that amazing? It's we actually
We
do it.
actually
This is
follow
not just
through.
it's not a ploy. We literally actually send out a book. We've done this before and send it out, so it's going to be good stuff. All right, so let's get to our conversation today. And man, I really am very excited about this discussion, this conversation. And it's been a little bit crazy for me schedule wise. Um, so I haven't had a chance to respond much to your comments, but I think this is a really, really good discussion, particularly as it pertains to dealing with the world we're living in, how to identify disciplable people, how to engage people in this. And so the topic, and I'm gonna introduce the topic and then just let you kind of set it up. But
Hmm.
I love the
Okay.
title. I love the title of what you sent. And that is just simply this: people are ready for change when dot dot dot. So
So true.
why don't you just give us a little info and share with us
Yeah.
what that means and kind of what we're going to talk about today?
Awesome. Well, I've always been a little bit of a fan student, I don't know, of change management. You know, um, change is hard. Change is a really tough thing. And so, there are a lot of books out there. There are courses. There are actually leadership curriculums that focus on like change management. And so, what are some different mechanisms? What are some different things that you can do? Different approaches. Some change management is like shock and awe. Just
Mhm.
just change.
Yeah.
You just throw it in there. It's like, what? It's never easy, and so you just throw it out. This is what we're going to do, and we're going to change this, and you just change everything. Um, then some other mentalities, mindsets about change management are that you begin to make the um, uh, argument for why we need change,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. So anyway, at the end of the day, I think that when we talk about so this is the crazy thing. So what we're talking about in what we deal with in the Mobilized Church Network, the Mobilized Church podcast, is we're talking about and dealing with change in not only on an individual level, but also on a corporate level. Now, I personally believe that that's the only kind of change that can create a movement. I don't believe that you can change policies and procedures and
Mhm.
change and create a movement because there's no culture shift in that.
Yeah.
And so it's almost as though when you look at the Jesus movement, Jesus changed people. He didn't change. He didn't change the religious structures.
Right.
And I think that's important. You don't find
Sure.
Jesus really going at the religious structures much. I mean, when he was confronted by those people that were in the religious structures. But if you notice, Jesus doesn't really go at the religious structures.
Yeah.
Um, in fact, he undergirds them in some sense when he talks about, look, don't be like the Pharisees. They tell you to do this, but don't lift a finger to do them.
Yeah.
He said, do all that they tell you to do. In other words, so what Jesus is saying is be it. Don't 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 create philosophies around it. Don't create institutional structures to support and undergird and police it and so on and so forth. If you're going to be it, be it. And so I
Sure.
think I think when we look at the life of Jesus, we find that Jesus didn't create a new movement by deconstructionism.
Which,
Jesus
man, that's a popular word and term and idea right now.
I
I think
know.
that's an important topic, right?
I know. So that's
Yeah.
why I'm trying to enfold that in there
I
that
love it.
Jesus didn't use deconstructionism. Basically what Jesus did was he unveiled the kingdom, and then what he did was he modeled it, and then he brought people through a discipling culture where 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 every single person became a point of contact for and an open door into the kingdom. And then here's how you become a part of the kingdom. Here's how, and that was the
Right.
discipling culture. So I just think today, as we talk about change management and churches, pastors who are thinking about, man, I want a kingdom advancing movement in our city. We just don't feel like we're reaching the people we should reach. There's so many more hungry, hurting people out there. Why aren't we coming into contact with them? Are we being effective in reaching the lost and whatever? And so if you when you reach the point where you begin to say, I don't know that we're being as effective as we want to be or need to be, which sort of, I don't know, maybe I don't punts that or tease it up for you for point one there. But I just think that as pastors reach that point where they just begin to say, we're just not as successful as we want to be, not from a church growth paradigm, not from an old institutional scorecard, not by we want to be the biggest church in the district or the biggest church in town or whatever, but
Right.
just simply the fact that every soul has an eternity. And are we touching as many, changing the eternal destiny of as many people as we want to? I think when you reach that point, you have to come to the conclusion, well, we can't keep doing what we've been doing bigger and better and faster and whatever. We're going to have to do some different things. That's change.
Right.
And so today, let's just talk about how we get to change and how change brings us to a different outcome.
It's a great setup, and I love how you brought up two key points in all of this. And first of all, change is hard.
It is hard.
Change is hard for anybody, right? Because most of us value security and familiarity.
That's
And
it.
so when you start coming in and challenging that and questioning that, it forces us sometimes to kind of become defensive, even if we know that what we're doing is maybe not working. We prefer familiar and ineffective over unfamiliar and effective
Bro,
oftentimes,
so
right?
good, Chris. Like Chris, don't we produce structures in our life for the very sake of continuity?
Right. Oh, man, 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And look at the extreme measures oftentimes people go to maintain the things that they're familiar with, like to avoid change. And so to think that you're gonna just move a culture or you're just gonna come in and just whatever, the old line, when I became pastor here in Toledo,
mhm,
everybody always told me, "Hey, whatever you do, you know, the illustration, move the organ or
yeah,
move the piano an inch a year,
yeah,
right? Don't make major change because people can handle that." And I actually and I know that I'm a little bit on the crazy side, but I actually did a couple things to measure the change tolerance of the church.
right,
There were a few things. I won't mention specifically what they are, but there are a few things I did that the only reason I did it was because I wanted to see they weren't, landmark things. They were
right,
just
right,
preferential things, whatever. And so I made some changes because what I wanted to identify was what was their change tolerance. And I realized the change tolerance at that time was very low. Now we have a culture where because we consistently keep things moving or whatever. Now the change tolerance has increased and whatever. But I think that's an important conversation
mm,
because because you can try to change people, but if they're not ready, right? That's the whole point of this. People are ready to change when dot dot dot. If people are not ready,
mhm,
they oftentimes people don't know what they don't know, and
right,
they don't know where you're taking them. They don't know what it's going to lead to, whatever. So I think that's an important thing. And then I love the fact that you brought up the deconstructionist piece,
mhm.
because that again, that is a major thing. And I hate to beat a dead horse, Ken, but
Yeah.
the, but
I mean, if it's dead, it's dead.
the
Who cares?
dadgum pendulum theory again.
Here it is.
Right? What happens is when you become frustrated, so we'll talk a little bit about the first piece of this, the first piece is people become ready for change dot 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 when the pain of ineffectiveness irritates them. I think this is so good, man. When you start looking at it and realizing, and this applies to church, this applies to dealing with disciplable people, all of that kind of stuff. When people start looking at their lives and they're irritated because what they know is that the church is not what it could be or what it's supposed to be, or their
Yeah.
ministry is not what it could be or supposed to be, their life is not what it could be or the potential that's there. And oftentimes what happens is we push back against what we've known. The problem is, the fault is what I've always done, the way we've always done it.
Mhm,
And so they come back at it really with a lot of angst and anger.
mhm.
I don't know
Very
if you
much
saw
so.
this. I don't know if you saw this or not, and I don't want to get too sidetracked, but Andy Stanley's on an interesting journey right now with a lot of his stuff.
Mm-mm.
And the latest video that came out from one of his latest sermons was basically apologizing to the unchurched for the boorish behavior of
Yeah,
Christians.
yeah,
It's all the Christians' fault. It's like an apology tour to the world, right?
yeah, yeah.
And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about the culture that he was raised in, and a
Which is
lot
a
of his
pretty arrogant position to think that you're in that. But anyway,
right.
yeah,
Well, and his whole thing right now is, and I'm not. This is not a rail on Andy Stanley thing, but it's for perspective, right? He's
yeah,
raised in a culture that is very much KJV only. It's
mhm,
very much the inerrant Word of God, like so. And so, what I see in Andy Stanley is, I think there is kind of the culture that he's from probably has a position that maybe is a little far on the end of one spectrum. And what he's doing is that's irritated him. He thinks that that's causing the ineffectiveness
Yeah.
to reach the unchurched and to reach the
Right.
next. Everything that he's doing is about reaching the next generation. And so again, this is not real on Andy Stanley, but what I think he's doing is he's swinging. This is the problem. So what we got to do is we got to swing to the other side of the pendulum and go way over here. And
We need to change.
yes. So when we get irritated, we got to come back to the center of truth, not swing to the opposite end of the spectrum. But that irritation, bro, can produce a major desire, or not even a desire, a willingness to embrace the pain that's going to come from change.
See, that's so here's what's interesting. So when I wrote, so what we're talking about today, and when I sent that to you, and I kind of cleaned it up and put it more in a graphic type deal when I finally sent that.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily, I purposely didn't come from the angle of from a biblical or church perspective. I actually just came from a change perspective. If you notice, it doesn't necessarily, like, it could be any kind of change. And one of the funny thing about it is when I started it, that very first phrase, and you can read that if you'd like, but that very first phrase, I thought to myself, that only is fuel for change. That doesn't mean you're going to change correctly. That doesn't mean that the change is going to be the change you actually need. It just means I'm tired of doing what I've been doing, and bless God, I'm going to do something else.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that doesn't necessarily mean that you end up doing the right thing. It just simply means you're so sick of whatever the status quo is that you're going to do the opposite of the status quo, which I would say, and this is something, this is a thought. I want to get it right because it's one of those, like, I think really foundational. When Jesus came to this world, he didn't come to change anything.
Right.
What Jesus does, any kind of change that you see in the lives of people who engage with and give their life to Jesus, any kind of change is a result of what Jesus is actually doing, and that is redeeming things to intended purposes.
Yeah.
Jesus doesn't change anything. He redeems things to their intended purposes. And so one of the things that we want to say is we're not about changing the church. That's why we're against deconstructionism. We don't believe deconstructionism is the answer. We think the answer is let's redeem it to its intended purpose. If we can do that,
I love that, bro.
right?
So good.
If we can do that, then we're following the Jesus model. And as long as you follow the Jesus model, the outcome's always going to be great.
Yeah, I love that. I love the redeeming. That was sometimes you have these like transformational moments in your life. When you mentioned that, who said that? Was that Dr. Littles?
What's that?
Redeeming the terms.
Yeah, when we were talking about maybe we're not using the word disciple because disciple had become, it was a religiously weighted word, and it had become sort of almost perverted or convoluted. And he said, he said, no, don't change. He said, we're not people who change the terms to match what we want them to be. We redeem the terms so that they're defined the way that Jesus defined them.
That principle in general, not just the terms, but just everything, the way we think and everything, that principle, bro, honestly has been one of the most liberating concepts that I've found on this entire journey towards multiplication. Right?
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that kind of mindset, you come at it's easy to come at things from the angle of what's wrong.
So true.
Right.
And by the way, the first motivator of change is the recognition of something not being right.
Right.
And so you're in a very dangerous place when you're at the first stage of change. People are like, well, what is the first stage? Tell me. People are.
And it can really bring a sense of, it can produce bitterness if you're not careful.
So
right.
True.
They got it wrong. They're not, whoever showed me what to do in the past, they got it all wrong, so we've
Wow.
got to avoid it. We've got to go the opposite end of the spectrum and change this and not and the reality is no, we got to redeem the term back to its original purpose or the
That's it.
principle or the concept. And so the first
That's
the
it.
first principle, people become ready for change when first one is the pain of ineffectiveness irritates them. Make statements like I'm tired of not being successful.
Mm.
So that irritation,
Yeah.
um, you know, how can we how we've talked a little bit about this, but ensuring that that irritation produces godly transformation, not just bitter transformation that's birthed out of bitterness.
I believe I believe that's the work of the enemy. I
Mm,
believe that I believe that all humans have a conscience that makes them aware of their lack of fulfillment.
mm,
I believe the human conscience causes people in general to be aware of the lack of fulfillment. That whatever it is that they did, whatever it is they tried, whatever it is they employed, whatever it is that they gave themselves to,
yeah,
didn't really accomplish what they needed or wanted. And I believe that's a function of our conscience. And I believe that as a function of our conscience, the enemy does not want the potential for change to be leveraged toward redemption. I
sure.
believe that he wants it to be leveraged toward further corruption and blindness and
Mm,
deception. And
mm.
so what he does is he works to use the agitation and the irritation to push people into farther and farther and deeper into darkness.
My goodness, bro. That is so good, and I think that's a message we all need to hear, right? Because you can value your heritage, you can value where you've come
Yeah.
from, you can value all those kinds of things, you know, um,
Yeah.
not to use this is a horrible
Oh
this is
boy.
horrible, but
Oh boy.
not to use, the old country song, "God bless the broken road," right?
Yeah. That
But
led me back to you.
the let right, all of the experiences that I've gone through, that's right, that's where my brain goes.
That's awesome.
But God uses those things that we've had.
Yeah.
It got us to where we are today, so you can appreciate, you can value all that kinda stuff and appreciate that there are flaws, and guess what?
Mhm.
10 years from now, we're gonna look back and people that we've influenced with, they're gonna look back. Things evolve, things change, times change, people change, cultures change, all that kind of stuff. You're never gonna get it 100% right, but all of the things we're going through, you can look at it and say, "What what's I can value what got me here, but God didn't bring me here to bring me here," right? God brought me here because he has a bigger purpose and bigger change, and
Bro.
letting that irritation produce something godly. And Gary Gauthier mentioned, Michael Dye, who does the Genesis process, and I definitely can see, and I've met Michael Dye. I've been in one of his deals, and I know that Michael Dye personally has had some church issues and some church things that he's gone through, and sometimes that irritation and that frustration actually produces self-destructive behaviors. It often
Does.
begins with kind of the spiritual awakening, and so I think it's we do, like you said it best. We need to be careful. We need to be cautious in this part of the journey, that we don't let that
Bro.
irritation produce something that's a rebellion against. That's just furthering the carnal approach, the natural mindedness.
Yeah, I believe this. I believe in many ways that, here's God who's brilliant. He's a genius. God's a genius. He's omniscient. And the brilliance of God is embedding in us and uh, uh, an irrefutable element of our nature that
Yeah,
that at the very least causes us to feel unsettled even in our most confident and comfortable times of our lives.
right.
The person who felt like, man, if I could just get to $5 million, And I got $5 million in the bank. It's earning me enough interest. I can live on that the rest of my life. And then all of a sudden there's a 30% downturn in the economy. And now it's like you don't have $5 million. You've got $3.5 million. Oh no.
Yeah.
How fast could it change? And so God in his brilliance gives us something to cause us to be able to know and to understand, because we're Chris, we're all in need of redeeming.
Yeah.
We're all
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
change. We're our problem is we change
There you
without
go.
being redeemed.
Ooh, there you
And,
go.
and
There you
so
go.
right. And so I think that even church people, rather than letting Jesus redeem it, even church people sense sometimes the frustration of a lack of fruitfulness and a
Yeah.
lack of joy and success in their walk with God. And again, the enemy jumps on their shoulders that, see, this stuff doesn't work. It's just it's imagination of your mind. It's that guy up there preaching, and he makes money doing what he does. And so he's going to preach it down your throat week in and week out. This stuff doesn't work. And what's he do? He starts eroding people's faith. And so people, rather
Yes.
than letting Jesus
Yes.
redeem it, they try to change. I'm going to change this. I'm going to change that.
So good, bro.
And so Chris, I'm going to say this. I just think that the work of the enemy, the devil's job, is to continue to cause us to not leverage. I'm going to say it again, to not leverage the lack of satisfaction.
Yeah.
Okay. The drawing of the Spirit, the moving of the Spirit. The Bible calls us co-laborers. Why do we have to come and bring the gospel? Because the Bible says that except they hear. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. And except they hear, faith can't be wrought in their life. And so they can be irritated and agitated and not feel satisfied with life and continue to turn down the wrong directions. And to me, discipleship is the central answer to those issues, because it's not just simply an introduction of salvation. It is an introduction to how Jesus wants to redeem everything in your life.
Man, that's so good, bro. That's so awesome. So, I want to move. I know
Let's go.
we could spend the whole time on this particular topic, and I think this one requires a little bit of extra attention because of the dangers that you mentioned there.
Mm-hmm.
But we can speak from personal experience that what got us started on this journey was the pain of ineffectiveness, right? We knew that there had to be a better way, something that we were missing. And so we started on that journey. And then so the people are become ready for change. When the pain of ineffectiveness irritates them, they're saying, I'm tired of being, not being successful. The second piece of this, people become ready for change when the transformation story from another inspires them.
Mm-hmm.
And they start to say, I recognize that it is possible. So tell us a
You
little bit
are
about
open
that.
epistles. You are open epistles read of all men.
Yeah.
That's now in a completely secular sense, in a completely secular context, this is why knowledge and information is so voraciously consumed over the
Yeah.
information age and whatever,
Right.
is finding someone who can give me hope. Their story inspires me because I see that they somehow persevered. They somehow, got through that. They figured something out. Whatever. I believe that in God's economy, in the kingdom economy, what this is these are the transformation stories of people who are living out what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And so they become inspired by that to be able to, at the very least, have a hopeful look towards I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that,
Yeah.
that there's hope for me. If there's hope, if there was hope for them, there's hope for me. And I believe this is what Paul was talking about when he says you are open epistles read of all men, that your lives, at the very least, take those people who are agitated and irritated, that their life isn't successful and it's not what they wanted it to be, or I've tried all of these things and man, I'm still just not satisfied. And then they look at you and go, okay, maybe there's hope for me. so they go from irritation to inspiration through that.
Man, that's so good. And this is the whole reason that we started the Dillingham Group and now the Mobilized Church Network. This is why we started the Mobilized Church podcast. Is we're not church growth experts.
No,
Farthest thing from it. We're not experts in that.
no,
All we do is share our personal transformation story of how
that's it.
God took us on this journey. And we're, like you said, we're voracious information seekers. We're voracious seekers of programs that have worked somewhere, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Because why? Because transformational stories are powerful.
And they go to a conference and they hear somebody telling the story about how they move from their irritation into effectiveness. And they go, I'm inspired by that. And what do? When you're inspired, what do? I'm going to implement that. So that's why step 3 wasn't implementation.
Right. Right.
Because it's not implementation, because it's not a program, because we're not trying to change anything. We're trying to redeem things.
Whew, man, that's so good. And again, there are dangers with inspiration. You can become emotionally inspired by something, which we're going to get into the next piece, which what you're talking about is not implementation, but understanding, illumination, that kind of stuff. And but I do think it is critical. Again, this is, we're kind of directing it towards like pastors and leaders and whatever, but this is true
bro.
in any scenario, in any situation. The greatest witness, the greatest testimony that people have, when you find somebody who is irritated because their life is not what they thought it was going to be,
That's
or
it.
what's possible, when they see you live with
That's it.
peace, when they see you live with power and joy and hope and all of those kinds of things,
Yep.
it's your transformation that inspires them, that says,
They're
I
doing
can
it.
have, yeah, I
They
can have
found
what you
it.
have. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep.
So this is why it's critical and important. How many people have we talked to, Ken, as you're talking there? How many pastors have we connected with that have said, "Man, God had been dealing with me about this stuff. I just didn't know anybody else was on the same
Yeah.
journey," or whatever. And that our transformation story has inspired people because it's affirming what the Spirit of God is leading them to. Again,
Yep.
it's not a change thing; it's a redemption thing.
Jesus is a redeemer. And so he's building his church.
Yeah.
And so anything that gets off course, he starts redeeming it. And
Yes.
so Jesus is speaking to pastors and he's speaking to people. And what's so crazy is it's funny because you look at it and you go, so Jesus goes, I died to redeem the world. Like, okay. And then he goes, I died to redeem the people in your city. Okay. How many of those people are redeemed today? And then all of a sudden you get irritated. That question irritates you because you say, not as many as should be.
Yeah.
And then God says to you, why?
Mm.
And then you say, because we're operating off of some corrupted principles. And Jesus says, okay, let's redeem that.
Yeah. Absolutely. I want you to go into the third piece of this, because it starts, obviously it all flows together, but you've already kind of referenced it just a little bit. But so we start with that irritation of
Mm-hmm.
just knowing something is not as it could be or should be. And then we see somebody who's experienced transformation that inspires us.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third piece of this is we move from irritation to inspiration. And then the third piece, people are ready for change when greater understanding illuminates them. And the comment is, I see what I need to do differently. So why do you feel like that third
It's the
piece
hinge.
is
It's
the
the
biggest
hinge.
piece of there? Right.
It's the hinge, bro. The third piece is the hinge because
This is so good, dude.
if
You
you're
producing gold, man. This is such good content, dude.
thank you. The here's the thing. I think if we, as we talked about, if you're at that state of irritation, you will. It's like Dan Greider said last week to us in week before last in Atlanta, where he said he was quoting a book or some author who said people have become so thirsty that they'll drink the sand,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
and people looking for answers are looking for they're looking for answers. And so they'll try anything. And I think that's what irritation or agitation does. It's the craziest deal. The other night, I had, I was just like irritated that I wasn't feeling good. And I was just kind of, I've got this pain pump thing and
Yeah.
this bag sitting next to me, and you got these catheter in your, sticking in your body, shooting like not morphine, but like Novocaine type stuff, numbing and whatever. And I got all that going on, and I'm laying in bed and I can't get to sleep, and I have a shirt on, and it's like, that's not the kind of shirts that I sleep in. And I normally sleep in these one kind of shirts, but I was like, and so finally I just said, so my wife said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Man, I got to get up. And so she changed my shirt. Everything. Right. And
Yeah.
here's the deal. If you're irritated, you'll just start trying anything.
Mm.
And so what happens is the first step of understanding, maybe I should try what they tried, is when you see success. So the first step is, I'm not successful and I'm going to do something different. Bless God,
Yeah.
I'm doing something different. The second step is, I'm going to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
Well, what they're doing may be redemptive, or it might just be inspiring. And
Yes.
you may go do that and end up getting more irritated. Well, doggone it.
Absolutely.
Am I just broke here? Am I just ruined? They did it, and they're preaching this conference talking about, and we had 867 people baptized last year. And you're like, we didn't even have 8 guests. And so then it more irritation. I think though, as you come down this line, each step is getting you closer to this crucial key.
Yes.
And what it is you have to arrive at the place of, I see what I need to do.
Yes.
And that is a result of illumination. And that is a result of being open to the Spirit and open to the influence of people who challenge you as to, what are you wanting to make change, or are you wanting to be changed?
Bro,
And
I think
man, bro,
that's so good. As you're talking there, I was just thinking about exactly what you said. Okay, we get frustrated, we get irritated, we hear an inspiring story, we feel inspired, emotionally inspired. We're like, well, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go try that. But if we'll wait, if we'll allow the Holy Spirit to lead us.
Yes, sir.
He doesn't irritate us for us just to throw spaghetti against the wall and hope something sticks.
True.
Or just to take what somebody wrote a book about and do what they did and hope it works. What does he want us to do? He wants us to get back to the plan that he established, the ways of his kingdom. That's one of the things you mentioned in your text to me, was about there's a better way, which are the values of the kingdom. What he's trying to do is not to get us to a better method. He's trying to get us to his values in the kingdom. Let his values become our values. And so that irritation and frustration, 100%, we've experienced it. How many people have we talked to that they get frustrated, they get irritated, they hear an inspiring story that worked in one context, they go and try it, it doesn't work, and all that does is produce more irritation. What if we said, hey, let's let this irritation and frustration and the inspiration drive us to a place of prayer, drive us back to the value system of the kingdom, and let God give us illumination on his way. Do it his way. There are principles and concepts. You made a statement years ago, and this really kind of helped me. Every church has its own spiritual DNA. Like, obviously we have the DNA of Jesus, but we all have personality and all that kind of stuff. But if we'll let the Spirit of God lead us, he'll guide us. Jesus said, I'll send the Spirit of truth, and send my Spirit, he will lead you into all truth.
Yeah.
If we'll let Jesus guide us, he'll help us to understand how to apply the principles of the kingdom into our particular context. Right? Whether
100%.
no matter what the situation is, individual, church, if you're a church in a metro versus rural, if you're whatever the context is, Jesus, the values don't change. He wants to give you illumination on what those values are and how you can apply them into your context. And bro, we can speak from personal experience. Once you get that illumination, now all of a sudden the fourth piece of that is, once you get that illumination, when a vision, you're ready for change, when a vision of what's possible starts to ignite them. Now, all of a sudden, you start looking at it and saying, I believe it's possible. I believe God can, because I've seen that I've seen the values of the kingdom and how it can be applied in my context. This is so good, dude. I'm telling you, this is so good.
Well, here's what's crazy. We just said at the opening of this podcast, we talked about the change management, and that change management has to have there's got to be two elements to change management.
Yeah.
You can either change it from the top down. That's an institutional response to the irritation. We're going to change the programs. We're going to do some stuff different around here. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. You can do a bunch of stuff different. That doesn't mean anybody's going to be any different. See,
Absolutely.
Your problem,
Absolutely.
your problem isn't what you're doing. Your problem is who you are. Right.
Yeah.
You're cursing the peach tree because you're wanting to make an apple pie.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, so you can make all kinds of, you're like, we're going to do all these different things. And next year, bless God, the peach tree is going to make apples. No, it's not.
It's not going to do it.
No, it's not. It's going to produce what it is. If you want apples, then you better plant you an apple tree. And so I think that here's what's crazy from a cultural perspective. There's elements there. But it all comes back to being.
Mm-hmm.
Are you it? Are you that? It all comes to culture, and culture's only formed by the transformation of people. So here's what's interesting. So you just described extremely well. You described the change that happens sometimes in the way that people do church differently, or the way pastors begin to have a different look. Think of it like this. Look at it from a discipling perspective and a spiritual conversation. You meet somebody who's irritated.
Yeah.
So tell me, what are you irritated about? What about this? Why do you feel like life isn't successful? Why do you feel like, and then, so this is what we talk about in the spiritual conversation. You share your transformation story. Do you mind if I share how Jesus gave me the answer and where that answer came from? And then what does that do? That creates the illumination, which causes them to be able to say, oh, I see what I need to do. Then the fourth one that you just mentioned, the fourth point that you just mentioned there, is that it then can have the effect of igniting something in them. Right.
Yes.
And so the question then becomes, are you ready to make that change? Are you ready to move out of this endless cycle and let God redeem the purpose for your life?
Man, it's so good. And I think that piece is so critical, because if you go through that journey, that process to illumination, where now you become so radically convinced about the value system of the kingdom, now you're ready to endure whatever comes as the byproduct of change, right?
There it is.
There's a conversation in the chat about salt, right? Salt heals, but it also irritates.
Yeah.
And when you start making change, there are going to be a lot of people that are going to gravitate towards that, but it's also going to produce some irritation and frustration in other people. But when you become radically convinced and you have that illumination of like, man, I so thoroughly believe in the discipleship concepts that I'm willing to endure misunderstanding, or people that get irritated with it. Maybe they don't have the full understanding of what it is. I'm willing to endure that, because I see that this way is the way of the kingdom, and I'm ready to do it. And it's personally ignited a fire in me that I want to give my life, the rest of my life, right? The rest of my life, I want to give my life to it. And I think oftentimes what happens is, I mentioned to somebody recently that they were talking about just some of the frustration that they've experienced in their life. And I said, here's the problem. The problem is you've never gotten the topic you've never gotten it in you so much that you live with radical conviction. Not personal conviction, like I have a personal conviction. I'm talking about like just conviction, like I believe this. And what happens is so
That's
many times,
that's ignition. That's igniting someone.
yeah, what happens is so many times, you know, and specifically to pastors, we're searching for the solution to a problem, right? We're searching for a solution to why aren't we growing? Excuse me. Why aren't we growing? Why isn't this happening? We search for a solution versus searching for the ways of the kingdom and letting that become so deeply entrenched in who we are and our identity that we live it with conviction. That
Bro.
igniting of that fire, bro, is
Bro,
what produces that.
listen to this. I had a
Yeah.
I had a conversation with someone who we got to step 3 in the spiritual conversation,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
so again, step 3 in the spiritual there's step 3 in what we're talking about today, right? Is when the pain of ineffectiveness, here it is. When the pain, so number 1 is when the pain of ineffectiveness irritates them, when the
Yeah.
transformation story of another inspires them, when greater understanding illuminates them.
Yeah.
This person in this conversation, Chris, saw what they needed to do differently, and that irritated them.
Mm.
It didn't ignite them yet. And I had to go back up to the irritation point and
So
say,
good.
so tell me why Jesus's answer to redeem you is irritating you. Tell
Hashtag
me,
tension.
right. And watch. And so here's what's crazy. Watch this. And the answer and the question that I asked that specifically was, I said, here, I've got it. Look, I've got to ask you a question, and I want you to be honest with me.
Yeah.
Is the irritation that started you on this quest for Jesus's plan for your life, the irritation of not being successful and everything that you've tried up to this point leaves you feeling like I'm not satisfied, whatever, is that irritation greater than the
Mm.
irritation against your fallen nature that's irritating you right now? Because that irritation will produce conviction, and conviction is conviction
Yeah.
is the flint that causes the ignition. Because
Ooh,
here's the
love that.
because here's the deal. And this is the thing. And this is the thing that I'm trying to get into the culture at our church. And this is the thing that I'm trying to get into the hearts and minds of people, because they think that information is the thing that's going to ignite them. And it's just not. And they think that if I just keep giving them more information, I just keep giving them more, and I just need some more information. And so they're going to watch another sermon, they're going to read another book, they're going to do another. And it's almost like if I could just get some more information. And here's the thing: the truth of the matter is, if you look at this process, okay,
Yeah.
inform isn't in here.
Right.
The third piece is when greater understanding illuminates them.
Goodness. That's an important
Bro,
piece, isn't it?
right? So the point that I try to make is this: the greater understanding illuminates something, and when it illuminates something, it shines on it.
Yeah.
And when it shines on it, Chris, it causes them to see where they're at a crossroad. And when they have a conviction, then they have a vision of what's possible. That's what a conviction is. What is a conviction? A conviction is how it should be. A conviction is about what can happen, what should be. And so when that vision, when the illumination comes that brings understanding and it shines on it and it shows them, you're going to do this or you're going to do this, then that vision that's possible then can ignite something. Conviction is the catalyst that ignites what's possible.
That's so good, man. That's so good, dude. And you see how this flows perfectly together. And I love what you said. Information is not in there, which we become information drunk. And you can actually become paralyzed, not just with analysis. I know that, the old cliche paralysis by analysis, but not even that, just paralyzed by by so much information versus God has a plan. God has a purpose. God has a way, and letting him reveal that. And this is why discipleship is so powerful, right? Helping somebody become self-aware and letting somebody get it for themselves, become self-feeders. If they get the principles of the kingdom for themselves, they're not doing whatever you want to put on the list. They're not doing it because you gave them a list of things that they're supposed to do as a leader or a church member or whatever. They're doing it because they've got conviction in their heart that they believe this is the way of Jesus. I want to live this way. And it's ignited a vision, a fire in them, right?
Can I focus on that word heart
Do
real
it.
quick?
Absolutely.
Recently, I was in prayer, and the Lord spoke to me, and he's in prayer. And I feel like the Lord spoke to me in prayer and said, if this wasn't something the Lord said, it sure sounds like something he would say. I felt like it was the Lord who spoke to me in prayer. And here's what I heard. He said, the reason why I used the word heart when I said out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. He said, because heart is a word that combines the three functional elements of why people do what they do.
Okay.
It is, the heart is the sum of what we think, what we feel, and what we want.
So good.
What we think, what we feel, what we want. Information just deals with the mind. And you can get all the information and you can debate. And I've had people, Chris, you know good and well that you've taught Bible studies. You've told me you have. You've taught Bible studies where somebody has looked at you and said, I see it. And you said, what are you going to do about it? And they don't do anything about it. They won't do anything.
Absolutely.
Why? Because the cost of acting on what they see is not, it hasn't become a conviction, and convictions exist in the heart. And convictions, or the heart, deals with what you know, what you feel, and what you want.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's so good. Yeah, I taught a Bible study 42 straight weeks. And that was kind of the conclusion of it. I see it, I believe it, I know it, but I can't do it. I can't do it because of whatever the reasons are.
And it wasn't an information issue, was it?
No, not an information.
You'd given them all the information they needed. That's why when hey, folks, listen, if you're listening right now and you're hearing this and you're hearing me and you're hearing us, we're not saying, the Bible's not enough, or, we're not saying that, well, give them the truth. We're not talking about that. We're talking about you just keep, you're just going to give them more information. Well, you know what you need to know. And I was reading this scripture and they told, look, Jesus didn't even operate that way. Jesus didn't deluge people with information so that they're left so mind numbed that they're like, okay, I'll believe what you tell me to believe. Jesus actually went to the place of the heart when he said, what do you want? Or to the rich young ruler, go take everything you've got, sell it. Once they got done with the information, he went to the heart and he says, okay, now I know you know, and I know you have a heart for these things, but what do you really want?
Yeah.
And he said, so let's get to the want issue. And so that's why I'm just saying, I don't know. I don't want to overplay all that. I don't want to, kind of veer off, but when you reach that illumination point, it causes understanding. And when people have understanding, they begin to see, am I going to go this way or that way? That creates conviction in them, which then ignites something that has the potential for true transformation.
Right. And then the last piece of that is once you've gotten a vision of what's possible and you have that conviction, you've been ignited by his spirit, then what happens is now you get instruction. People are ready for change when preparation instructs them, now I know what to do. Right.
That's it.
What happens a lot of times is we skip. I feel like, I know me personally, I have skipped from irritation to instruction.
Yep.
I've skipped from, when you're talking about with the information, I don't like what I'm feeling. I don't like what's going on. And so I know what to do. I'm going to go do this.
Here's
I'm
what you
going
need
to
to do. But do.
I know what I
You
need
can
to do.
instruct something to do. You can't instruct somebody what to be.
Exactly. And again, this is why this all just flows so perfectly with discipleship and all of that, because it's not about instructing what to do until it gets in you, until it becomes not what you do, but who you are.
There you
And
go.
that comes through the process of hearing the stories of what's possible, right? That inspiration piece is important. Hearing the stories of what's possible, what can be done, then getting that illumination, your understanding. I think that piece is a really important piece that you mentioned, the understanding piece, not knowing, but truly understanding, bringing illumination. And then how many times, bro, how many times when we start talking to pastors about creating a discipleship culture in your church, what's one of the first questions that we get asked?
Yeah. So where
Do
do you
you
start? What do you do? Do you have a manual, a
do you have
workbook?
curriculum? Where's the curriculum? Give us the curriculum.
Yeah.
And I know that several pastors, we got some guys on here that some of them maybe could share, but I know that there have been some that get irritated because we don't have the curriculum. Because what we know is you can go from irritation straight to instruction, and it's not going to produce. You're going to become more irritated until it becomes conviction in you that this is the way of Jesus, so that you're willing to endure the pain, you're willing to endure the hard times when it doesn't look like it's working, bro.
Conviction.
Right?
Conviction, bro.
So
And
powerful.
and Chris, you know what the crazy thing about it is? I mean, just all you have to do is come listen to our podcast to know we've got plenty of curriculum. I mean, we got plenty of
Content.
information, content. It's not.
Right.
I mean, we could go back and just transcribe, 2 years worth of podcasts. We've got. It's not an information or a content issue. It's we have to walk people through transformation.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it.
That's it. And Jared Staten makes a great statement. We prefer instruction to irritation. We don't want to go through that process of
What's a
letting
great point?
letting God irritate us,
Great point, Jared.
right? We want to just instruct us of how to fix the pain. But the old saying, until the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, you won't change. And so God allows us to feel the pain of what we're doing, not because he's trying to hurt us, not because he's trying to, frustrate us, but because he's trying to get us to that place of
Bro,
change.
Gary, if you can't explain it without a manual, it's not a conviction, which is, Chris, one of those things that we talk about. If
Yeah.
if you can't paraphrase a scripture, if all you can do is quote it, but you can't paraphrase it, then you really don't know the scripture. You've
You
just
don't know it.
memorized it. And here's what's funny. You ready? You're going back to the apple tree analogy.
Yeah.
The thing that studies how and why apple trees make apples are almost always not apple trees.
Okay.
Apple trees never study
They,
how they make apples.
they don't know. All right.
It's make
Right.
apples.
Right.
And it's so funny because
So true.
you watch people who just they are it and they just do it.
We
They
were
do-
just at a meeting, bro. Right. We were just at a
yes.
meeting. And that was the
Yes.
whole thing. It was like, you're
It
studying
was
on
not
this.
apple trees trying to figure out how apple trees make apples so that they can do apple making.
It was horticulturists trying to figure out what apple trees do. And
You're
and
gonna
there
have
were
to
some
become an apple tree, bro.
and there were some apple trees in that room that you could tell there was like frustration. Like, I can't really, I don't, it's just, we're just apple trees, right? Just be an apple tree.
I can't
That's so
tell you
good.
how to, yeah, apple trees. Apple trees are like, I can't tell you how I do what I just, yeah,
Yeah.
so good,
It's
man.
awesome, man. So just to recap, so people are ready for change. The 5 I's: irritation, inspiration, illumination, ignition, and instruction. Right?
Praise God.
People are ready for change when they're irritated. That leads to being inspired by somebody else's story, which leads to illumination, greater understanding, which leads to a vision of what's possible, which is ignition. And then that leads to preparation of instruction, that now I know how to be and what to do in this process. And so, man, honestly, this principle this is the linchpin of the whole thing.
Yes.
right? You just summed up, bro. You just summed up in a little small graphic the whole journey.
Bro, I I prayed, man. I prayed, and
You need to have surgery more often.
I went, dude. I went to my office. I went to my office and I sat down, and I just said, God, I don't have a whole lot of time here because my stomach was kind of, just whatever. And I'm like, I need you to help me because I know you're putting something in my brain, but because I don't have a lot of time to sort of. Sometimes God will put stuff, in you. You know how it is. He'll put stuff in you, and it's hard. It's easy to understand in you. It's just hard to get it out of you so that other
100%.
people understand it. So,
Absolutely.
all glory to him, man. All glory to
It's
Jesus.
beautiful. It's beautiful. And so many great comments today.
The
I
book.
mean,
The book.
the book. Oh, the book. Absolutely. So here we go. I think Roger Feiler had the best argument.
What was it?
It's really cold, bro. He's up in Minnesota and he needs a good book on a cold day. And so
Okay.
let's send a book to Roger Feiler. How about that?
All right. Okay.
We'll do that.
All right.
We'll send him that book, and we'll do that. And you know what? Hey, I'm going to send a book. We're going to send a book to Jared Staten as well.
Dude, he's had some great, yes.
Yeah, and he kind of backhanded complimented us, I think. I'm not 100% sure about that. So we'll send 2 of those. We'll get those out today. I will be in contact with you guys, get information. We'll send out that book by Mike Breen. So appreciate everybody jumping on and being a part of the conversation today. Hey, do us a favor. Would you do us a favor? Just tell somebody about the podcast. Share it. Get the word out. Tell somebody. Not because of us, but because I think, Ken, I know that the Holy Spirit is doing a work in the body to prepare us for this end time revival. And what you brought out is such a powerful piece in this journey of how to move to where God wants us to be into a multiplication, discipleship, apostolic culture that he's destined us to be. So help us get the word out. Of course, you can always check us out. More information on all of our social media sites, our website, thedillinghamgroup.org. Anything you want to say before we go, Ken?
I just trust. You said the Holy Spirit. Just trust the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
I make a horrible Holy Spirit. I agitate people I agitate people the wrong direction.
Right.
So you know what? So I just want to be a co-laborer. I want him to work on that irritation piece that works at the deepest place of the soul. And then just me help leverage and mine that out and say in other words, rather than me trying to create the agitation, and this is revival. Revival isn't when somebody gets up and preaches a message and makes everybody irritated and agitated. Revival is when somebody gets up and opens the door and the Spirit starts moving and people start getting sick and tired of who they are and what they are. So Holy Spirit, work on the hearts of people. Don't make me an agitator. Don't make us, irritators of people. Just let him do what he does. And then ask the questions. What are you going to do about that agitation that you're feeling?
It's good stuff, man. Good stuff. We'd love to connect with you. Check us out, dillinghamgroup.org and social media. And we'll be back next weekend, rocking and ready to roll next Tuesday around 10 o'clock in the morning. We look forward to coming back to you then. Until then, go live mobilized. God bless.